Welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate, and motivate others to make the world of business a better place. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by the fantastic Ramcess Jean-Louis. Ramcess is the global head of diversity and inclusion for Verizon Media. And he's had over 2 decades worth of experience working within the global D&I space, in addition to delivering human capital solutions, primarily within the media, tech, and also the engineering space. Now, Ramcess has had a variety of experience in addition to also working in the present role. He's worked across a number of different sectors, in addition to doing a lot of not-for-profit work as well. He ensures that diversity is reflected in the workplace and in all business activities, including advertising, marketing, programming, purchasing of goods and services, deployment of services, and community-facing efforts. His time outside of work is spent working within a not-for-profit, which is called Turning Points for Children. This organization provides adoption and foster care for services to children who are at risk. Welcome to the show, Ramcess.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And you've done so much in your career, I have to say. I was looking through some of the things that you've done, and oh my goodness, I could have been talking almost for half an hour about everything that you have been doing, which has been fascinating. And I wondered, just to kind of start things off, whether you might be able to just share with us how you came to be, I guess, where you are today, and maybe give the listeners who are tuning in a little bit of a summary about your personal background.
Sure, sounds good. So, diversity and inclusion is one of those topics that I am especially passionate about. I always like to start with the why. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, the reason why diversity and inclusion is important is because we know the data tells us that organizations that have more diverse workforce usually are more profitable, better decision-making, in addition to better tenure towards innovation as well. So that's the business reason why, but I also have a personal reason why diversity and inclusion is important to me. I am the proud son of Haitian immigrants. I'm the youngest of 8 kids. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, being the son of Haitian immigrants, we didn't always experience inclusion. It wasn't uncommon that, being a Haitian immigrant or being other immigrants in New York City as well, you would get poked fun of, you could get bullied, and sometimes it could even result in physical harm. Early in my career, I had an opportunity to work on some major diversity and inclusion campaigns. One was for the NYPD, and it was at a time that they were undergoing a certain degree of police scrutiny because of police brutality cases. One particular case had to do with a Haitian man by the name of Abner Louima, who was assaulted with a plunger while he was in police custody. So again, when you take a look at some of the experiences that I've had and what I've seen, there's been times where I haven't experienced inclusion. And there's been other times where I have had great inclusion in my life. I could honestly say inclusion is better.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is, because without the inclusion, we can't make diversity properly work, can we? And talk to me a little bit about kind of just reverting back to your earlier career, because I was noticing you worked in attorneys' offices and things like this. And, it seems such a kind of almost in a way a far cry from where you're at right now. But at the same time, as you and I both know, being D&I professionals, you can apply D&I and B to absolutely everything. But I'm really intrigued in kind of that early life almost, and how you kind of made those steps across into, I guess where you are now.
Absolutely. Again, I think it probably, is rooted from my childhood. Growing up in a large family, it was like growing up in the United Nations. I was always mediating between different family members. So that gave me a love for sociology. And my love for sociology and psychology translated into getting a degree in organizational behavior from Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations. Then I translated that into going into law school because, again, I love the idea and the concept and the way that we study. How do you get people to work in different groups, in different organizations? How do you optimize that? And also, how do you make sure that you encourage positive behavior that you would like to see, or, deter behavior that you don't want to see. And again, my love for psychology, organization, behavior also turned into a love for criminology as well. How do you prevent behavior that will not be a good thing for society? So I started off my career as a prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's office. I really enjoyed that opportunity, standing on my feet. And it's interesting. I have to be honest as well. I gained a lot of great experience, but there was, a tremendous amount of diversity in the DA's office as well in terms of going through the system. I didn't necessarily enjoy seeing, any young person, just in general, having to go through the system, and actually seeing the number of African Americans, Latinos, or Asians. Again, finding that you see and you meet folks who perhaps haven't come in touch with their full potential was a little bit of a challenge for me, and I wanted to have a larger impact. So I think when you take a look at my career has really gone 180 degrees. So now I feel as if in the space of diversity and inclusion, we can create platforms where people are able to express themselves through work.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ram. And again, and we spoke about this earlier this week, we're obviously facing terribly uncertain times at the moment when it comes to the coronavirus and self-isolation and everything like this. And as you know, we are, kind of trying to advise and share some tools and tips and things like that with our listeners about how we can best get through these uncertain times. And I know that you're doing a lot of great stuff at Verizon. I just wondered whether you could share a little of your experiences and how you've been coping, I guess, with the situation.
Absolutely. So I have to say our leadership at Verizon is doing an outstanding job, just really making sure that we were prepared for any type of crisis that might happen. Of course, no one could have imagined that we would be here. But again, I have to give credit to our CEO, Hans, our head of human resources, Christy Pambianchi, Sandy Gould, and Guru, the head of Verizon Media. Their leadership, and Andy Nevins, their leadership have really been outstanding. And the reason why I say that is been outstanding is that, we've put in place a strategy for Verizon 2.0. And we've kind of prioritized, who our major stakeholders are. And we have four major stakeholders. And our stakeholders are, got to start with our employees. Our customers are super important, but we understand that the pathway to the customer experience is through the employee experience. So our employees are important, our customers are important, fiscal responsibility, our fiduciary duty to our shareholders is important, but to society overall and to society at large. So those were always our stakeholders prior to all of this taking place. And the fact that we've kind of had that embedded in our brains, that that's how we prioritize, we took that same structure and those same principles and those same values, and we've translated, and it's serving us so wonderfully currently, because again, our CEO and our leadership start every meeting by saying the most important thing that they need all of us to focus on, 150,000 employees plus, are ourselves. We have to focus on ourselves, and we have to focus on our families. It has to start with the oxygen mask that you put on yourself. So now that we have that and we're looking out for each other, then we have to really prioritize our networks and making sure that our networks are running the way that they should. Again, the value that we go by is that, we build the networks that move the world forward. Communication becomes critically important at a time like this. We're currently taking a look at the data, and the data tells us that people are making more phone calls. They're spending more time on the phone, and the amount of texts have increased substantially. All of that is very important because, as you mentioned, when we're practicing social distancing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have mental isolation. Now is the time more than ever to reach out, to contact your loved ones, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers. Some of the things that we've been doing that's really been serving us well is that, we allow time for social interaction. We'll schedule a time for the team to just have a stand-up meeting, just to chat, just to talk. Maybe we talk about work, maybe we don't. Maybe we talk about our kids. We're having an opportunity now through this medium to really make sure that, sometimes we might have one of our kids walk through in a frame. We'll introduce them, we'll talk to them, we'll have pets cutting through. So, we have to allow space because this is new for everyone. Everyone's trying to put on the hat of doing in-home schooling, managing family, managing elders. I think the leadership support has played a very large role, but also our employee resource groups have played a large role as well. We have one employee resource group, an interest group, that really focuses on being a caregiver and a care provider. So whether you're taking care of your folks or whether you're taking care of children, having that support network, being able to send out tips, being able to reach out to each other, and also knowing that, when you take a look at this crisis, we understand that marginalized communities are being impacted. We really wanted to make sure that our employees know that they were going to be okay. What we told our employees were, I got you. That was a message that was very important for us to share.
That is absolutely fantastic, and some really, really great tips there. So what you're essentially saying is, not only does this almost the reassurance come from the top, it's great that your CEO, Hans, is able to share, and is consistent with that messaging where he's actually saying, look, put yourself first here. I love your analogy there of the oxygen mask. It's kind of like being on a plane, isn't it? Where they say, look, put that on first and then you can help others. And, I think that's a brilliant, brilliant expression. In fact, I'm going to go and use that again, actually, because I really, really like that. I think it's a very simple way of kind of visually explaining what we must do now. And I think, it's very easy because we're all in a state of worry and panic, I guess, is to start worrying about other people. But, and again, it does start with ourselves. It starts with you, doesn't it? And so if we're not looking after ourselves, how can we possibly look after other people? And again, kind of reiterating, some of the pieces that you say there, which I think are just fantastic learning. And I hope everyone who's tuning in today can take heed, is kind of really looking, once you've got the oxygen mask on, at looking at building those networks and really keeping in touch when it comes to communications and data. The piece there you said about not mentally isolating yourself is so true. The mind is the most important organ of the body, isn't it? And so making sure that we keep mentally, activated and mentally stimulated, that does not need to stop just because we're physically in isolation. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think some great top tips there. And, I guess moving, on to kind of other subject matter, you mentioned there, something about the ERG that plays a very, very big role where you're kind of focused on kind of caregiving and providing and ultimately kind of giving back. And, Ram, I know that you're a big fan of kind of giving your own personal time to worthy causes outside of work. And what I'm seeing and what I've heard from Verizon is there is a great balance when it comes to allowing employees actually to be able to spend time doing something that they're passionate about, and allowing that that balance between doing something good whilst also working for the company. And I wondered, could we chat a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. When you take a look at our priorities overall, we've named society. I mean, these are the communities that we have the opportunity to be able to work in and to live in. So we want to play our part as well. And one of the things that we've done is through our corporate social responsibility department is create a dashboard where all of our employees are actually able to go on there and decide what different projects that they want to work on. Or it might be something that might not even be listed. Maybe perhaps we'll list it on there just to make sure that it's known to our other Verizon employees who might want to participate. Personally, I'm on the board of an organization called Turning Points for Children. They do outstanding work for children who are at risk, or for children and families who are potentially at risk. How do we make sure that we support the family unit? But so proud to be working for an organization that gives us the time and the bandwidth to do that. So not only do we emphasize it throughout the organization, when you take a look at our employee resource group, we have a model where we go by the 4 C's. And one of those C's has to do with community. How are we going to give back to our communities? And we have a variety of employee resource groups that come up with different activities, whether it's donating time or working on different initiatives with them. We definitely invest in the community.
That's fantastic. And what are those 4 C's actually? Because I think it's, I'm always a believer in the power of kind of simplicity and, bullet points and things like that. And so that's great.
Absolutely. The 4 C's happen to be culture, community, career, and customer. How do you make sure that you prioritize those 4 C's? And what we ask our employee resource groups to do is to, and sometimes some people say customer, some people say commerce.
Hmm.
So what we tell our ERGs to do is whenever you're working on something, try to make sure that you're able to hit at least 2 or 3 of those 4 C's
Hmm.
for any particular initiative, or perhaps even intersectionality is
Hmm.
something that's
Hmm.
critically important to us. So we like to bring our employee resource groups together.
Hmm.
We have an African American, we have a Latino, we have a disability, we have a neuro, we have a variety of different ones that we like to bring together, have them work on different
Hmm.
initiatives for the organization.
Hmm. I think that is so important, and obviously, there's a lot, a lot of talk about how ERGs are fantastic. I really do think they are the key piece in really, fast forwarding and accelerating a D&I strategy. But there is some, talk, I guess, about the fact that they can become siloed almost, and we're kind of creating more division. Um, so I think the fact that you do actually interweave all of those pieces together, that, I mean, it's absolutely critical, absolutely critical. And they talk about kind of intersectionality. There's so many of us that belong to more than one of those groups, or feel that we have affiliations with more than one. And so in weaving those together and making sure that there is kind of embedding across the board is brilliant.
Uh, we want you to bring your authentic self to work each and every day. You don't necessarily have to choose. And our motto is you don't have to be to belong. You don't necessarily have to be one of those groups to participate in that employee
Mm-hmm.
resource.
Mm-hmm.
We support and we welcome our allies.
Hmm. That's an excellent motto. And again, as you know, I spend a lot of my time in boardrooms, and over the years I have seen to a degree a shift, which is fantastic. But I've often had CEOs who predominantly are middle-aged white guys saying, yes, but diversity and inclusion, how related to me is that? And isn't this an HR issue? And I say to them, no, it's not just an HR issue. This is a board-wide issue. Without you being involved, it's really hard for us to be able to actually move that dial. And so that motto there, and I've written it down, is kind of you not having to be to belong. Actually, every single person has got something diverse about them. It's not just the physical diversity, it's also the under the surface diversities, the ones like social ability or mental health that perhaps we need to ask about before we find out about them almost. So it's a great motto there, and I've actually just written that down, so hopefully again others can listen in, or anyone's listening in thinking, actually great, I can get involved in all these different things. And I guess just last kind of to touch on before we kind of hop into the lightning round for today. But I wondered, when it comes to I guess social and business well-being almost, and around your CSR piece, which I think is which is really, really great. I really do think that businesses can do a great job and do great business whilst also doing good. And that piece there about the CSR and encouraging your employees to work with charity whilst being in the organization, I'd love to see more organizations do that and embrace that, because it's not kind of the archaic past was business is about making money, and yes, it's about making money, but I think you can have both. You can have socially responsible business. I wondered, what have your kind of observations been around what employees have said, and any tips that anyone listening in today who maybe doesn't have that in place right now could perhaps look at in order to either start implementing this or to kind of really spearhead it within their organization?
Absolutely. The feedback that we've received has been absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about employee engagement, our employees feel so connected with the organization because what they're saying to themselves is, if our company cares this much to be here and to donate time, energy, and resources, then this is the organization that I want to be a part of. So there's a lot of folks that say within our organization that they're here with Verizon because they feel as if they can bring their authentic self and they can support the organizations and the charities that they'd really like to be a part of. So the feedback has been great. One of the things that we know is that employee engagement, or the lack of employee engagement, costs a lot of countries billions of dollars every year. But the building block for employee engagement, has to deal with inclusion. Our employees feel as if not only are they being celebrated, but they're being included when the company says, sit down with us and let's talk about what are some of those good things that we can work on collaboratively within your community.
Mm-hmm. I think you make a very, very good point there, because what you're saying is not only is this a company-wide initiative that everyone can get involved in, but also we're not just completely doing a copy-paste cookie-cutter model type of thing. Actually, you can select what is it that you personally are passionate about and select from one of these organizations that you can then go and work with. And again, something that I really would love more organizations to take up is almost this personalization model, because so much these days is can be copy and paste, and I guess with digital technology, which is wonderful, it's very easy to just kind of roll out the same thing, but having that personal touch and that human touch is absolutely critical, I think, to business success. And I guess just before we wrap up for today, because again, Ram, I'm feeling like I could actually just sit here and talk to you for forever. And if you've listened to any of the previous podcast shows, we usually do a little lightning round at the end where I just ask you a couple of questions, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to answer each of those. So if it's okay with you, we'll head into lightning round now.
That sounds good. Let's do it.
Perfect. So I guess first of all, what is diversity and inclusion to you?
So diversity and inclusion is difference. How do we celebrate the difference? We're all unique. How do we bring that all in and share each other and bring the best of everyone to the table?
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And is there anyone, I guess within business, or it could be within your personal life, who has been a particularly standout inspiration to you as you've gone through your career and life milestones?
Absolutely. I would have to say I've had a lot of different influences. I've been blessed to have a lot of leaders who have been personally invested in my growth. That's like really motivated me. But I have to start off by saying my family first and foremost. When I take a look at the way my parents raised me, to really appreciate, support everyone, and most importantly, to be able to walk in somebody else's shoes. Being able to have that empathy has served me throughout my career.
Excellent. And finally, I wondered if you were to go back in time and to be able to speak to the young Ram and give yourself some advice, or indeed, if there's anyone who's out there, be they a seasoned exec or a young grad starting on their path, is there any advice that you might be able to share with us?
Sure. I would say, take advantage of all of the resources that you have available and just learn, and soak it up. I think one of the most important things that's, again, really did well for me is that situational awareness. So I'm a big fan of psychology and sociology, but, being able to build bridges and being able to connect. So whether it's, learning languages, but learning new skills and always being curious, always knowing that there's always more to learn and being able to be collaborative and surround yourself with people who may know more than you in different areas. That's how we grow and that's how we build together.
Thank you ever so much. And that's great advice there, surrounding yourself with people who know more. Very, very good indeed. And Ram, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show and kind of getting to know you personally. And so I'm sure that everyone who's listening in has learned a huge amount. As I usually do, I'll kind of, I'll do a quick summary just of some of the key learning points. From today, of which there's been many actually, and I'll share some of the ones that stand out for me, but as usual I'll put them into the show notes for the end of today's show. I really loved the model with the 4 C's, actually: community, culture, career, and customer. I think that just encapsulates everything perfectly. And I think also what's really kind of come out from today's show is the fact that you've kind of you've displayed so much resilience, I guess, throughout your career, being the youngest of 8 and obviously growing up perhaps in some kind of quite difficult times where and same for me, you're quite aware when you're young, and even more so as you are young, because you're very easily influenced almost, to be tough and kind of, I suppose, stay strong. And actually, really being able to achieve anything is possible if you put your mind to it. Some of the things that you've done, not only within business, but also I think within personal life, really are an absolute, kind of inspiration. And I think, and I hope that anyone who's listening in is thinking or being inspired and thinking, oh, wow, not only can I do great things in business, but I can also consider what else I can do to actually actively help the community. And so I think being resilient, believing in yourself, the oxygen mask piece there again, where you've got to look after number one, you absolutely have, now more than any other time, with the coronavirus and everything like that. So putting family first, looking after number one, making sure you're breathing correctly, and then helping everyone else. Multiple things are possible, and let's kind of just I guess embrace the future. So thank you very, very much again, Ram.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation, Leila.
I'm so pleased. Thank you very, very much. My name is Leila Mackenzie Dellis, and you've been listening to the Diverse Inclusive Leaders podcast show. We're with you every week, but we're going to be with you even more around these uncertain times. I hope you've enjoyed the show today with the wonderful Ramcess from Verizon. If you'd like to reach out to myself, or you've got any questions for Ram, please do get in touch. Ram is on LinkedIn. I also am on LinkedIn. You can visit us at www.dialglobal.org/podcast or www.leilamackenzie.com/podcast, and you can see all of the show notes there. So if you've missed anything at all, or you wanted to write down some of those top tips and tricks, all of those will be in the show notes at the end of today's show. Thanks so much, and see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.